Hello, my name is Miriam. Welcome back to my channel. So as promised in my last video, I said that I was going to do a wrap-up that was strictly romance books because all I have been reading since April of this year has been romance. Nothing else, no fantasy. It is now the middle of August and I'm finally starting to break out of that. Yeah, I don't know what happened in the spring and summer, but apparently I was in my romance era. I was just in and out of reading slumps, and romance was just like the quickest and easiest thing for me to get into during those times. I have 11 to talk to y'all about today and tell you my feelings about them. I am not prepared at all for this video. I have my iPad right here and Goodreads open, and we are just going to go off the top of my head, very cozy, very casual. So yeah, let's get into it, I guess. So the last book that I left off on my last wrap up was The Crown of Gilded Bones. So the next book that I read after that, really starting this video off with a bang, is Gifting Me to His Best Friend by Katie Robert. This is a smutty, erotic novella by Katie Robert. That's really what Katie Robert specializes in. I think the title tells you everything that you need to know about the plot of this book. There is really no plot except for multiple threesomes and the start of a polyamorous relationship between a married couple and the guy's best friend. Very much an eye-opening, awe-inspiring experience for me as a person. It was like genuinely well done in my opinion and well written. So yeah, 5 stars to that one. And then I quickly went into The Beast by Katie Robert. Both of these, by the way, were on the recommendation of Mina from Mina Reads, which is like one of my best friends. So I went into The Beast, which is part of her Wicked Villains series where she does retellings of like Disney stories, but she puts the princesses with the villains of the story instead of like the hero. I had absolutely no interest in reading like most of the books because the pairings just did not really do it for me, especially the Jasmine and Jafar. I don't know about that shit at all. But Mina told me to read The Beast because she loved it. I'm not like really too attached to Beauty and the Beast. I don't really know the characters that well, so it wasn't really so much a retelling for me as it was just like a regular book. So basically in the universe of this series, there's like multiple like family mafias, and there's like mafia wars in the same city, and like the headquarters for like all of the families to meet is a sex club. There's just a lot going on, but basically this story followed like the characters of Belle, the Beast, and Gaston. And like I said, I don't really know those characters that well, but they were all in a polyamorous relationship in here, and this book was absolutely insane. Wild, completely wild, but I rated it 4 stars. It was what I was looking for at the time, so yeah. So after that, I went into The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, which is a favorite on BookTube that I've seen around for years, probably since like 2018, 2019. I've seen people loving this book and following each book in the series and reading all of them and loving them. I went into it, I read it, and I liked it so much. If you don't know what The Kiss Quotient and the subsequent books in the series are about, basically in this first book we follow Stella and Michael. Stella is a very hardworking woman that works in the tech industry in Silicon Valley. She's 30 years old. She's on the autism spectrum, just like all of the main characters in this companion series. She is very inexperienced, and her parents are kind of on her about getting married. And then we have Michael, who is an escort, and that's how he makes his money on the side. And so you can kind of tell how these two meet, and they kind of develop a relationship throughout the book, and it's so entertaining, so heartfelt, so funny, and just really amazing. I just really enjoyed it. I rated that one 4 stars, and then I quickly went on to the second book, The Bride Test, in which we follow Kai, who is Michael's cousin who we met in the first book. So Kai is Michael's cousin who also is on the autism spectrum, and Kai's mom wants nothing more than to pair him up and marry him off because he's in his later 20s, and she just wants him to have someone because he lives alone, he works a lot, he kind of overworks himself. She just wants him to have someone to come home to at the end of the day and someone to take care of him. She ends up going to Vietnam and ends up meeting this girl named Esme by happenstance. Esme is pretty poor and she's working to support her family and her child that she had as a teenager. Kai's mom offers to have Esme come and meet Kai and see if she would like to marry him, and she would basically be paying for all of the expenses and giving Esme money on top of that. Obviously Esme takes this opportunity, I would too, and she comes to the US, she meets Kai. They really have like a very interesting language barrier between them because Esme talks to him in Vietnamese and he answers back in English, and it's just very, very interesting. I love that dynamic between them. I loved this book so much. I think I enjoyed it just a little bit more than the first book. I just had so much fun, and even though I didn't love the ending to this one, like it was kind of cheesy and I had some questions that I felt like weren't really explained very well, but I just had so much fun, and this was just like a perfect, well-rounded romance for me, and I just loved their dynamics so much. And I just loved Kai. Like Kai is definitely kind of my type. I loved both of them. Loved this book. I rated it 4.5 stars, and this book just left me wanting the last book in the series so badly because Quan, who is Kai's older brother who has tattoos and drives a motorcycle and is so sweet and amazing, he was a really big part of the bride test, and it just made me love him so much. After reading the bride test and learning that the third book in the series was going to be about Quan and like his romance, I was shaking in my boots. I was so ready because Quan is everything. He was my favorite character in the whole series. I was just so excited. Nothing could have prepared me for the disappointment that I felt when I read The Heart Principle. Shortly after this, I got an ARC off of NetGalley. I was able to read all 3 of these books basically in a row. That just made The Heart Principle hit even worse because I was immediately comparing it to the other 2 books, and it was nothing of the sort. It was nowhere near the realm of amazing romance story that the other 2 books were, and I'm gonna tell you why. The Heart Principle, we follow, of course, Quan, and we also follow Anna's son, who is a violinist. Sometime before the book starts, she actually went viral on YouTube from a performance that was posted of hers, and it has kind of created this really intense pressure. This book follows a lot about Anna and her struggles and, you know, everything that's happening with her, while also following Quan, who went through something really traumatic. That is a spoiler, so I will not say, but he went through something really traumatic completely off screen during the break between the last novel and this one. This came really out of left field for me because Quan was such like an enigmatic character in the other 2 books. He was like such a bright presence, very set in his characterization. He was just a very fully fleshed out character, and from the beginning of this book, because of what he went through off page, he is changed. He's a changed person, which is completely understandable, but I just thought that that was very random to throw in there, and especially since all of it happened off page. Also, like I said, a very big part of this book is Anna's struggles with her family and struggles with a very overbearing family. She also has a problem in this entire book where she is taking care of a person who is basically like on life support. It is very, very hard to read. I will tell y'all that right now. Like, it was just making me so sick to read about Anna's struggle with that. It was just overall a really, really depressing book. That is the exact opposite of what I was expecting, especially out of Kwan's novel, because he was such a bright character, like I said, in the other two books, especially in The Bride Test. And in the author's note, Helen Huang did say that this book and the subject matter was very, very personal to her in a different way than the other ones were. I completely understand that, and I respect Helen Huang so much for writing their experiences and everything like that, but it just did not feel like it belonged within the realms of this series. I really would have appreciated a book outside of this series that was about that was like a hard-hitting contemporary novel. I think that it could have been really, really well done, but within the realm of this series, it very much stands out as having a completely different, way darker tone. Did not match the tone at all whatsoever that was set in the previous two books. There was little to no humor. There was honestly little to no romance. It was just not a good time for me. I personally do not really read hard-hitting contemporary stories that are about the struggles within families, because overbearing family members is my #1 pet peeve. I physically cannot handle seeing a character have to submit to their very overbearing family, and it just never works for me personally. So reading this without knowing that that's exactly what I was getting myself into was just really setting me up for failure. This book was not what I signed up for. It just didn't match up with my expectations, unfortunately, and that's really all that I have to say. Like, I rated this one 3 stars initially, but then thinking on it, I lowered my rating to 2 stars because it just wasn't for me. I still love the first 2 books and I will still reread those, but I will not be rereading The Heart Principle ever again. So next up we have, of course, the book that I have mentioned a couple of times on this channel, that I have been talking about on social media ever since I read it in May. Started off my summer so right with the perfect book, and that is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I have no words for this book. So in this book, we follow Poppy and Alex, who meet in college, and we basically follow their friendship over the course of about 10 years or so. In their college years, Poppy and Alex strike up a deal to take a summer vacation together every single summer. And so we are following every single summer trip that they took, while also following them in the present, where they haven't spoken to each other for quite some time because of an incident that happened a couple of summers ago on one of their trips that we don't know about until towards the end of the book. Following all of this without knowing exactly what happened, but a situation being alluded to the entire novel, while also seeing their dynamic unfold in the past summers. It was just a recipe for an amazing novel. It just spanned such a huge amount of time, and the pacing was so amazing in my opinion. I just felt like I lived through those 10 years with them. I felt like I went on all those trips with them. I felt like I was in the room when they were having very intense conversations with each other. It was a very conversation heavy book as well. Not only were we focused on the trips that they were taking, but the book is first and foremost about the dynamic between the two of them and how much history they have and just how much emotions are between them for each other and how much they care for each other. Their relationship was just so well crafted. I'm just rambling at this point, but this is one of the best books that I've ever read, and it's my favorite romance of all time now, and one that I would really, really recommend to a wide variety of people. Yeah. Highly recommend. Read it if you haven't already. It's 5 stars if you could not tell. So next up, I read A Gentleman in the Street by Alicia Rai, and I apparently rated this 3 stars. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember what this was about. It's one of Alicia Rai's older works, and I haven't read any of her newer ones, but I just picked this one up randomly. I rated it 3 stars, so if it sounds interesting to you on Goodreads, I recommend that you read it. Yeah, so next up we have 2 of the Ice Planet Barbarians books. Yeah, that definitely happened. I don't think that I need to tell y'all that there was like a whole Ice Planet Barbarians like reckoning on TikTok earlier this year. I have known about the Ice Planet Barbarians series for quite some time. I never really had any intentions of reading it, but obviously I was in my romance era and there was just so much talk about these books on my TikTok, and I was like, you know what, let me just dip my foot in and see what the ruckus is about. So I read the 1st and 3rd books, and I gotta say, I enjoyed them. I did. I rated both of them 3 stars, and the 1st book I would genuinely say is just a 3 stars. Like, it's honestly not bad. I gotta say, it was pretty funny. The main character was absolutely hilarious, and I really liked the Ice Planet Barbarian alien man. Like, he was pretty cool. The 3rd book, however, I was genuinely going to rate that 4 stars because I liked it so much. But the only thing about the 3rd book that was kind of weird is that the main character in that 3rd book was infertile, and she referred to her infertility as her being broken, and I don't agree with that kind of thinking. Everything else about the book and the relationship between the 2 in that book was like really amazing, and I loved the male character in that book, the male alien. I can't sit here and lie to you and say that these are just straight up bad, because they're not. Like, they were enjoyable. Will I be reading any more of them? I can't say that I will, but I also can't say that I won't. We are nearing the end here. We have 2 books left. These are both 2 really recent reads. These are actually 2 books that I've been kind of getting out of my most recent reading slump with, so I'm kind of back in my reading era now. And these 2 books are the ones that kind of helped me out on the journey of getting back to my reading era. The first one is The Roommate Risk by TALIA HIBBERT. Of course, I've read the first 2 books in the Brown Sisters, and I've also read Guarding Temptation. I just love their writing so much. I love the way that they write romance. They just know how to write romance. Like, everything just comes together in each and every single one of their novels, and this was not an exception at all. So The Roommate Risk is about, honestly, it's kind of in a way like a little bit similar to the structure of People We Meet on Vacation, because it follows these 2 people that met in college, and it follows them for like about 8 years, and it has like some flashback chapters to their dynamic. But the difference is that these 2 people have been attracted to each other since the beginning of their relationship, but they just decided early on to like just be friends and nothing else. So they are best friends, but the male character in this book, Rahul, is in love with the main character, Jasmine, and he is pining over her for a very long amount of time. And yeah, she has a lot of commitment issues and everything like that, but obviously at the end they get together, and this book was just really good. It kind of had me a little bit iffy around like the middle point of the story, because I just felt like things were like dragging just a little bit. Like, I think this could have been a little bit shorter, but I enjoyed it so much, and TALIA HIBBERT just simply never misses. So I gave this one 4 stars. And the final book that I have to talk about today is From LUKOV with Love by Mariana Zapata. This was an interesting time for me because, okay, so I'm very interested in getting into Mariana Zapata and just all of her books. I just feel like she is very well acclaimed for having those really, really long, really slow burn romances, and I wouldn't read just anyone's 500, 600 page romances. Like, I wouldn't read that from everyone, but since it is Mariana's brand and it is what she does every single time, I feel more comfortable and more confident that I would really like a lot of her novels because of that. And so I have been wanting to start my Mariana Zapata journey for a long time, and I just randomly decided that now was the time. So I started off with the infamous From LUKOV with Love, which follows two ice skaters that are kind of enemies. They kind of hate each other, but they are unexpectedly paired up to be partners, and they have to learn how to effectively work together because being ice skating partners is a very like intimate thing. You have to have a lot of trust in one another. And yeah, they fall in love. It is very, very slow burn, as I expected. I expected the romance itself to be slow burn, but I didn't expect the pace of the story to be so slow as well. I'm not gonna lie to you, it took me about 40% of this book to really get into it and to buy into the characters and their relationship with each other. I don't know what it was. Like, I think it was the writing style that was really putting me off in that first half of the story, but I did end up getting used to it, and I did end up really, really loving Jasmine and Ivan's relationship, and I loved, you know, watching them do their ice skating thing and everything. But that's another thing. Maybe because I'm a Yuri on Ice fan, but I, for some reason, was under the impression that this story was going to be following them doing like multiple competitions, and we were going to be, you know, kind of in this high stakes thing, maybe trying to go to the Olympics or something. I have no idea. I thought this was going to be a very like high stakes story for some reason, and it was nothing of the sort. We don't see an ice skating competition until the very end of the story, and there's only one of them. But like I said, like once I fully, you know, was invested in the characters and their relationship, it was pretty good from there. So I did rate this 4 stars. It's probably more like 3.5, but I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads. I really did enjoy it, and I would be willing to give Mariana Zapata another try to see if maybe another one of her sports romances will be like a little bit more exciting or anything like that. I would definitely recommend this book though. You just have to be willing to stick around for the long run with these characters to like fully see it through. So that is it for my romance wrap up. I think that I am finally out of my strictly romance era. I think I'm finally getting back into that fantasy mood, and I could not be more excited because it is just so weird to me that I have not read a fantasy in like 4 or 5 months. I think I'm just ready to get back into that. Also because like we're moving more into fall and winter is definitely when I'm in the mood to read fantasy like all the time. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought. I'm so interested in hearing y'all's thoughts on any of these books that you've read. Let me know if you plan on reading any of these books. Let me know what you've been reading and loving this summer as well. Like, what has been your favorite book of the summer? Because mine is obviously People We Meet on Vacation, but I'm interested to see what other people have been reading during the summertime and loving. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next video, whenever that is, hopefully soon. Goodbye. Meeting this girl named, what the fuck was her name? Oh fuck, the fucking battery. Stella is what the fuck am I saying? What the fuck am I saying? Okay, scrap all that.